Good evening and welcome. My name is Susie Fonda. I'm the Director of Education and Public Programs, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us here at the Concord Museum. It's such a pleasure to see so many of you here on a warm August night here for this special performance. Before we get started, I wanted to extend our thanks to our many co-sponsors and co-presenters. It includes the Women's Suffrage Celebration Coalition of Massachusetts, the Brandeis Women's Studies Research Center, the Boston Women's Heritage Trail, We Did It For You, Women's Journey Through History, the League of Women Voters of Concord Carlisle, our local cultural councils, Saltbox Kitchen and Winery, who have provided our drinks tonight, and Copper Penny Flowers. So thank you to all of them for sponsoring. As you all know, next year we will be celebrating the 100th anniversary of the adoption of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, which guaranteed women the right to vote. So as author Pam Swing writes in her director's note included in your program, the centennial is an opportunity for us to think about the issues of voting rights and social justice, both then and now. I can think of no better time to consider these issues than today, as we sit at a critical juncture in American history, and that there's no better place than the town of Concord with its long history of civic engagement and civil disobedience. The performance will last approximately 45 minutes and will be followed by a question and answer session. And now we are pleased to present I Want to Go to Jail. Thank you.
I Want to Go to Jail, a play in one act by Pamela Swing and Elizabeth Divanka. Scene, Boston, Massachusetts, at the State House and other locations. Time, February 23 to March 9, 1919. Scene 1, National Women's Party headquarters at 9 Park Street. Suffragists are sorting out banners in a spacious room that has a table piled with papers on one side and a couch and armchairs on the other. Sunday, February 23, 1919. Betty Graham enters and speaks to the audience.
How do you convince people in power to give you a share of that power? When asking politely isn't working, it's time to picket.
President Wilson returning from Paris Peace Conference after 3 months.
President Wilson's ship due in port tonight. Crowds, huge crowds expected for tomorrow's parade.
French Prime Minister escapes a murder attempt yesterday.
Catherine Morey, Alice Paul, Lucy Daniels, and Rosa Rauer come forward.
Catherine, how many women have signed up to picket?
We have 21.
Only 21? I was hoping for many more.
It is February in New England.
How can they let weather get in the way? This is the first time President Wilson has been in the United States for months.
We reached out to a lot of women. They were more worried about the bad economy right now than getting the vote.
Don't they understand that voting will give them a voice in how the government responds to economic downturns?
I ran into anti-suffrage sentiment as well. One woman said that we needn't bother on her account. She wouldn't know what to do with the vote if she got it. She told me her husband makes all the big decisions in her household, and that's fine with her.
And I had a woman tell me that it is our sacred duty to raise our children and care for our husbands. I told her I have children myself, and I refuse to be restricted to the home and have no political say. Women have a voice, and we intend to make this country a better place to live in.
Good for you, Rosa. Did you convince her?
No. But at least we had a civil conversation about it. Some women just slammed the door in my face.
Well, we'll have to make do with the numbers we have. Are the banners and sashes ready?
We're all set. I'm especially pleased with the way the big banner turned out.
Lucy Daniels holds up the banner that says, "Mr. President, you said in the Senate on September 30, we shall not only be distrusted, but we shall deserve to be distrusted if we do not enfranchise women. You alone can remove this distrust now by securing the one vote needed to pass the suffrage amendment before March 4.
It's high time that President Wilson paid attention to his own country.
And to the women in his country.
He owes us. We sent over our husbands, our sons, our fathers, and our brothers to fight in the Great War. We kept the country together while they were gone. We deserve to have a say in how our government is run.
Betty Graham is from Oregon, and she's been voting since 1912. Here in Massachusetts, we still don't have the vote.
Exactly. That's why we need this amendment. We can't wait any longer for each state to give their women the right to vote.
Where is Betty anyway?
Martha Foley enters.
Excuse me, is this the National Women's Party?
Yes, can we help you?
I heard you were going to picket President Wilson.
That's right. Would you like to join us?
I think so, but I've never done anything like this before.
Don't worry, we will show you what to do. I'm Catherine Moore.
Martha Foley, nice to meet you.
This is Lucy Daniels, Rosa Rauer, and Alice Paul.
Alice Paul? The Alice Paul? I've read all about you in the papers.
Good. That's my goal. The more news about suffrage in the papers, the better. So you'll join our group tomorrow. You do need to know that the police will arrest anyone who pickets.
Oh, I've never been arrested for anything.
Don't worry, most of us have been arrested before.
I don't know. I'm going to have to think about this.
Oh,
Betty, there you are.
we've got a big problem with our plans to picket. After the attack on the French Prime Minister yesterday, they've decided to have a solid line of troops guarding Wilson's route. How will we even get near the State House?
Maybe this isn't such a good idea. We could wait until President Wilson gets back to Washington to picket him.
We can't afford to lose even one day. We will get more attention if we picket Wilson the moment he sets foot on American soil.
But a solid line of troops?
It could get nasty.
You must make it clear by your conduct that you are committed to nonviolent protest.
But what if they don't get the message?
Their job is to prevent an assassination attempt on the president. Unarmed women carrying banners are not a threat. I expect you all tomorrow at headquarters by 9 a.m. sharp. Martha, will you be joining us?
I'm not sure.
It has to be your own decision.
I was in your shoes not too long ago. It's funny to look back on it now, but I was very unsure about becoming a suffragist.
Really?
I go to suffrage meetings, but I wasn't ready to commit. It was like two parts of me were having an argument. I dreamt all my life of becoming a singer, but I also believed in women's rights. I couldn't do both. I ended up moving to New York City to study voice and started singing in Broadway musicals.
That sounds like fun.
Oh, it was. I even won an audition for a leading role. Then my sister came all the way from Oregon to tell me about a large picket line that Alice Paul was organizing. She wanted women from every state to participate. I knew right away I wanted to do it. I guess I was just finally ready. Didn't bother me at all that we knew we would be arrested.
My dream is to become a writer.
It's important to listen to your dreams. What makes you want to picket?
Well, growing up, my dad never gave me the kind of attention he gave my brother. He would tell my brother he could be anything he wanted to be, but he wouldn't hear of it when I said that I wanted to be a writer. As a woman, the most I could aim for was a teacher. And, of course, get married and have children. I want more for women, for me.
You sound a lot like me. Sleep on it. Whatever you decide, it has to feel right for you.
Scene 2, National Women's Party headquarters, next day.
Did anyone else sign up to picket? Since yesterday, I really want a good showing.
We could easily add to our numbers by asking Josephine St. Pierre Ruffin to reach out to the others, to the local Negro suffragists.
That is a great idea.
I wish we could. The problem is, the southern states would not support our cause if we include Negroes.
I think that is extremely short-sighted of today's suffrage movement. Here in New England, Lucy Stone worked with abolitionists to fight for Negro and women's rights together.
Once the vote is granted to women, Negro women will be able to vote as well.
I'm not so sure about that. The southern states are already blocking Negro men from voting with their Jim Crow laws.
This is really an important topic. There is no easy solution, but there's a lot at stake, and our plan is to picket President Wilson, and I think we have to focus on that right now.
Oh, good, you're here. I'm so glad you decided to come.
I had to sneak out of the house, but I truly do want to be here. I was awake most of the night thinking about our conversation. And you know what I decided? I can combine being a suffragist with being a writer. I'm going to write about what happens to me. I'm so excited.
That is a really fantastic idea. Here, I saved a sash for you.
Ladies, let's talk about our strategy for today. I think it would look much more dignified not to smile.
Be calm and determined. Keep moving and try to slip past the line of Marines without provoking them. Then stand in front of the State House in silence. I'll be off to the side. I'm hoping I can convince the police not to arrest you until after President Wilson passes by.
We do expect to be arrested at some point. Offer no resistance.
No resistance to getting arrested? That's not how we've been doing it in front of the White House. Boston is just too stuffy for words.
Betty, I've picketed the White House even more than you have. Boston is different. We've told the police that we're not trying to cause trouble. We will be more effective if we behave with dignity.
It depends. We don't want to seem like we're just giving in.
Oh, Catherine, I'm scared that we're going too far. This could be dangerous.
I know. I couldn't sleep last night worrying about it.
But what do we do? Miss Paul is absolutely set on picketing today.
I'm not sure.
May I have your attention, please? I do so wish I could picket with you today. I love holding a banner high for the world to see, and I would willingly go to jail again. But strategically, I am most useful if I can lobby the Senate next week, and I can't do that from a jail cell. Once we get that one last vote, the suffrage amendment can go to the states for ratification.
Miss Paul, some of us are still worried about getting past the soldiers.
I've been thinking about that too. We'll be arriving at the State House long before the president is expected, and he is the focus of their concern. I really think you will be okay if you just march right through their line and act as though you belong there. Okay, everyone, line up. Today could be the day that makes the difference for ourselves and for generations of women to come in this country. Wilson claims that now he supports suffrage. Let's let him prove it to us.
Lucy Stone would be rolling over in her grave if she realized women still don't have the right to vote after almost 70 years of trying.
Lori leads with the American flag, followed by the others with purple, white, and gold banners, and the large sign with a message to President Wilson. Scene 3, outside the State House, a short time later. Police Commissioner Curtis enters.
Miss Paul, these ladies have to leave before the president's motorcade arrives, or they shall be arrested for loitering.
They have a right to be here. It's our right as citizens to peaceably demonstrate.
Miss Paul, we're serious. Your group cannot remain here.
Fellow suffragists, ignore him. To carry out our plans.
Ladies, if you do not leave, you shall be arrested for loitering. Ladies, I hereby arrest you for loitering in public. Ma'am, you're under arrest.
Don't you dare touch me! You're violating my First Amendment rights!
I'm sorry, but you're coming with me. Officer, I need your assistance. Take these other women into custody.
Ma'am, I have to place you under arrest. Don't tell my superior, but I'm with you, ladies. My sister wants the vote, too.
Tell her to get in touch with us.
Scene 4, next day, courtroom of the Pemberton Square Courthouse, which has just been cleared of all spectators, including Alice Paul and the press.
Hear ye, hear ye. All rise. All persons having anything to do before the Honorable Chief Bolster of the Municipal Court for Suffolk County Criminal Division, draw near. Give your attendance, and you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
We are here today in the arraignment of the defendants on the charge of loitering more than 7 minutes. The defendants shall approach the bench one at a time. What is your name?
As an American citizen under arrest, I demand a public trial.
Defendant is to answer the question put before her. What is your name?
My name is Jane Doe.
What is your name?
As an American citizen under arrest, I demand a public trial.
Defendant is to answer the question put before her. What is your name?
My name is Jane Doe.
Are you all Jane Doe?
Yes.
You are hereby charged with a violation of a City of Boston ordinance by loitering in a public space. How do you plead?
Why do you single us out for loitering? All of Boston was loitering, waiting for the parade to start.
You are the ones who have been charged and are appearing before me. I ask you again, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
You have the right to appeal any conviction and sentence.
We refuse our right of appeal We were loitering for liberty.
In that case, I find you all guilty and sentence all of you to $5 fine or 8 days in the Charles Street Jail.
We want to go to jail.
Scene 5, Charles Street Jail that evening. Suffragists are each in their solitary cells. Sheriff Kelleher enters.
We demand to be treated as political prisoners.
And that means we get to keep our own clothes, have books, and generous visiting hours.
Ladies, calm down.
And no work details. We are not criminals. We did not break the law.
You're not political prisoners. You did break the law, and by refusing to pay your fines, you're subject to the rules of the regulations of the Charles Street Jail. But since you're also only here for 8 days, you can wear your own clothes. Why don't you have some bread and cocoa and get settled? You'll be here a while.
Bread and cocoa? Don't treat us like children.
I won't eat that, and I won't eat anything that is served here. I already started a hunger strike last night.
Me too.
Suit yourselves.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
How are you doing?
Oh, just fine and dandy.
Do I see correctly that all we have for a toilet is a bucket?
That's all I have.
Who's crying?
I think it must be Betty. Betty, are you all right?
I can't stop crying.
What's the matter?
I can't stand being in jail.
I know, it's no fun.
My memories keep flooding back. I can't stop reliving the night when the men attacked us at the Occoquan workhouse.
Oh, Betty, that was the most terrifying night of my life. Those men meant business. They tossed me into a cell like I was a rag doll.
They dragged me by the shoulders and threw me into a cell, too. I had bruises for weeks. I kept hearing screams out in the corridor, but I couldn't see what was going on.
What are you talking about?
Betty and Lucy were part of the Night of Terror. My mother was as well. It still upsets her to talk about it.
The Night of Terror?
The superintendent hired men to rough up the suffragists to teach them a lesson. Some women got beaten pretty badly, and one woman had a heart attack. Then they tried to keep visitors and the press out.
Every time I heard footsteps coming towards my cell, I'd get scared, like something else awful was about to happen. And of course, we were all on a hunger strike, so it wasn't an easy time.
Oh, God, I'm remembering the stench of my cell. How much it hurt not to eat for 8 days, and, those horrid rats that dragged the food I wouldn't eat off the table.
Oh, my dear, I wish I could hug you right now. You sound like one of my children having a nightmare.
This is a nightmare. I'm willing to do almost anything for the cause, but I hate jail. I feel so trapped. How am I going to last?
We're all in here together. We'll get through it.
But I feel so alone right now. Martha, I'm sorry. I want to put on a brave face for you, but I just can't pretend everything is okay.
I think we should try to get some sleep, if sleep is possible on these poor excuses for beds.
Alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, for justice, for freedom, alive, alive, oh, la 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 la.
Scene 6, Charles Street Jail next morning.
Betty, how are you doing today?
Still a bit shaky. It helps that we can talk to each other. Last time we had to whistle to hear each other, let each other be heard. I'm famished though. Martha, how are you?
I didn't sleep very much, but I'm okay. Betty, I'm so sorry you had to go through all that. But you survived. And next time I'm going through a hard time, I'll remember that.
Jane Doe, you have a visitor.
Her name is Martha Foley, not that absurd Jane Doe.
Papa, no! Don't tell me you're here to get me out. I hope you didn't pay my fine. You know this is important to me.
He already did. You're free to go.
You have embarrassed your mother and me enough with this suffragist nonsense. How will you ever find a husband now?
I'll never marry. I have found my community where I belong.
You will gather yourself, hold your head up, and leave all of this behind. We are going home and you are to forget these women, so help me God.
I won't go.
Refuse or not, it's been done and you're taking up a jail cell that could be used.
You have no choice if you plan on living anywhere but the streets. Now let's go. I won't hear another word.
What you're doing is illegal. I did not give you permission to pay my fine. I am going to contest my release.
Yoo-hoo! Mr. Sheriff, may I have a word with you?
What is it?
I'm accustomed to the cold, being from Vermont and all. But these cells are absolutely freezing. We need more blankets.
And the guard told us we had to carry our toilet buckets down to the jail yard to empty them ourselves. They're too heavy for us to manage.
This isn't a hotel. It's a jail. Don't like the treatment? Don't commit the crime.
You won't even give us our packages that we know people are sending us. We are human beings.
How can we deliver packages when all of you are called Jane Doe?
Scene 7, Martha Foley's bedroom. Spotlight comes up on Martha Foley sitting at a desk writing.
I went straight to the Women's Party headquarters after leaving the Charles Street jail. When I walked in, they were flabbergasted to see me. How did you get out? They asked. I was forced to leave, I told them. It was the last thing I wanted to do. I explained that my fine had been paid illegally, without my consent. I don't think it's necessary to say that my father paid my fine. I mean, I had to tell the others at headquarters, of course, and they were suitably horrified on my behalf. I was determined to find out by what right such an unprecedented thing had been done. Immediately, a group of us set out for Judge Bolster's office, where our delegation encountered a court officer. When we asked his name, he replied, Jane Doe. You really can't make this stuff up. He had a smirk on his face as he said it. This was, of course, the alias that we had used in our sentencing. The judge refused to grant us an audience, so we returned to headquarters to write a statement to the press. It took us some time to come up with suitable wording to express our outrage. From hour to hour, the methods of the authorities in dealing with the situation which they have created with regard to the 16 women whom they have sent to the Charles Street jail grow more and more extraordinary. Protests are coming in to the mayor and Judge Bolster from all over the country.
Scene 8, Sheriff Kelleher's office at Charles Street Jail.
Why have I been brought here?
Your fine has been paid. You're free to go.
What do you mean my fine has been paid?
You have a mysterious benefactor.
No one can pay our fines without our consent.
What's your problem? Usually people can't wait to get out of jail.
I don't believe my fine has been paid at all. The authorities just want to be rid of us because we are a publicity crisis.
All I can say is that a man wearing glasses and a dark overcoat came in this afternoon and said he was here to pay the fine for you.
I demand to know who he is. He is violating my rights as a citizen.
If I had refused to accept the money, I would have been violating the law. Once the fine is paid, I can't keep you in jail.
I will not leave this jail until the others come with me.
I'm sorry, but their fine wasn't paid. Yours was. You have to go.
I absolutely refuse to leave.
Why? Please tell me. Would you want to stay in jail? You've been complaining non-stop about the conditions.
We had a legal right to picket. We should never have been arrested in the first place. But since we have been, we want the world to know what we're up against when we ask for basic rights.
Please don't compel me to use force.
I am not leaving this jail.
You give me no choice. I regret this exceedingly. Officer, Miss Morey refuses to leave on her own accord. We will have to escort her out.
Scene 9, Charles Street Jail, 2 days later.
166, 167. As of this moment, we have received 168 telegrams. Listen to this one. We wish to congratulate you on the newspaper space being given to the Fighting Suffs. That's us. Isn't it marvelous how well this has played out? We've been on the front page of newspapers for days. Lucy, how are you doing with the telegram for the president?
I just finished it. Mr. President, you alone can secure the one vote needed to pass the suffrage amendment before March 4th. This is the message we tried to silently deliver to you on Monday. We repeat it to you now from the Charles Street Jail in Boston.
That's excellent, Lucy.
If that isn't enough, I'm on day 5 of my hunger strike. I won't eat until President Wilson gets that vote.
And I'm determined to stay in jail for our full sentence. I am not going to get dressed today. If I am in my nightgown, no one can throw me out.
Oh, look, there's a note from Martha Foley. She says, every morning I wake up and I wish I was still in jail with all of you. Hang in there, it won't be much longer.
Ladies, your fines have all been paid. You're free to go. Except for you, Miss Flower. Your husband supports your finishing your sentence. He says he'll take legal action if your fine is paid. But the rest of you, out.
Oh, for goodness sakes. Who paid our fines this time?
The same man as last time. Reporters have been desperate to learn more about him, but all they could dig up is that he calls himself E.J. Howe. He claims he's acting on behalf of someone else.
This is just ridiculous. Someone is undermining what we are doing. At least Mrs. Rower's husband supports our cause. What do you think, Mrs. Rower? It's only 3 more days. You okay with this?
Absolutely, I'll do it with pride.
Okay, then you know what I think? Getting thrown out of jail is just as good publicity as staying in jail. The papers have been eating it up. Lucy, throw something on over your nightgown. We're leaving.
Scene 10, outside the Charles Street Jail that evening.
Mrs. Rower! Mrs. Rower! Mrs. Rower!
Mrs. Rower, we have wonderful news.
Senator Gay of Louisiana has come out in favor of the amendment.
We finally have enough votes in the Senate.
We did it! The amendment is going to pass Congress at last!
We can't wait until you can get out of jail to celebrate with us.
Count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Their eyes to the eastward, their hearts high with vision. The women have toiled through the dusk of delay. The brave banners blowing, undaunted and singing, for justice, for freedom, alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, for justice, for freedom, alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, we did
backstage at the 6-year-old Wilbur Theater, Boston, 9 days later.
I honestly thought we'd done it this time.
I know. Picketing, going to jail, it had worked.
I was so excited.
Me too. Then those anti-suffrage senators kept the amendment from coming to the floor for a vote before Congress adjourned.
They snatched victory right out of our hands. I've never been so frustrated by anything in all of my life.
Now we have to convince both the House and the Senate to vote on it again. It's taking forever.
You can't give in to despair. This is just a temporary setback. We shall prevail.
That's fine for you to say. You're still young. Susan B. Anthony did not live to see women get the vote, and I'm starting to think it won't happen in my lifetime either.
I just joined the National Women's Party, and we're not going to let that happen.
I hope you are right. It would mean the world to me to go into a voting booth and mark up my very own ballot.
Keep your chin up. We came this far. I know we'll get there again. Remember, we're the fighting Suffs.
Yeah! But I keep wondering, did reporters ever uncover anything more about that mysterious Mr. Howe who paid our fines?
Not really. Evidently, he was acting on behalf of a prominent Boston attorney. All Mr. Howe would say was that his client did not want the Suffs to suffer.
The ceremony is about to begin. Martha and Mrs. Rower, since this was the first time you went to jail for suffrage, you will each receive a prison pin, a jail door pin. But I want to say how proud I am of all of you. You persisted in picketing in extremely challenging conditions. You did it with grace and fortitude. For the rest of your lives, you can take pride in knowing that you took a stand for justice and equality and went to prison for your convictions. Woo! They're calling me to go on stage. I expect all of you back at our Washington headquarters on Tuesday morning. We still have a lot of work to do. Woo!
And you'll see here that Allison is holding yellow roses, and we are giving all of the cast members yellow roses, which are significant because they were worn by women and men as a symbol of unity and support for women's suffrage. At the Tennessee General Assembly in 1920, suffragists wore yellow roses, while anti-suffragists wore red roses. The prominence of yellow roses demonstrated the consensus of the general public and no doubt affected the deciding vote passing the landmark legislation granting women the right to vote across America. And we're pleased to thank Copper Penny Flowers here in Concord for donating the roses. So I'm going to introduce Pam Swing, who is a resident of Concord, who's one of the authors, and Freddie K. Esquire, who is the founder and president of the Women's Suffrage Celebration Coalition. So. There you go.
All right. So the cast is going to stay on in case you have any questions for them. And we're dying of curiosity to know what you think. And if you have any questions.
But first, I think you should tell about your grandmother. And who is this?
Yes. Oh, yeah. In case anyone hadn't already figured it out, my grandmother was Betty Graham.
That was not planted, but I really wanted her to tell.
I knew her till I was almost 16. And interestingly enough, by the time I knew her, she didn't want to talk about the suffrage movement very much anymore. But when my mother met her, because she was my father's mother, so when my mother met her, she couldn't stop talking about it all the time. And when I asked my mom years later, well, what did she say? My mom said, oh my God, I couldn't stand it. I tried to forget it as fast as You know, it was interesting the first 15 times. Anyway, so I've learned a lot. I inherited her papers at one point, and I realized I really did not know anything about that chapter of her life, except I knew she'd been a suffragist and gone to jail, but I knew nothing about it. And this play is the culmination of a lot of what I've learned.
The play was performed at the State House on the actual anniversary in February of the 100th of the jailing of the women.
And there was a snowstorm that day, and the cast almost didn't make it.
Of course.
Because it is February in New England.
But we almost did it outside, and then we decided.
Yeah, I wanted to do it outside because I wanted it to be right where they stood. And saner heads prevailed.
But it all worked out.
Yeah. Questions? Yes.
Is it going to be performed in the future? Do you have any other future dates?
Well, it's on the website for
The Women's Suffrage Celebration Coalition, Suffrage 100MA, which was what you saw outside. The other, and you may have other things to talk about. One is that Pam has been so kind to offer to be done by schools and other places, so we're providing it to our partners and so forth, so that it can be distributed and people can put it on, students can put it on, community groups, whatever. So it's very generous of Pam and the co-author to do that. Yeah.
What's the date of this one that you're talking about, the performance?
There's no other.
Oh, I thought you said it was going to be performed.
No, the idea is that it's on the website and anyone can download it and perform it.
Oh, nice.
I think it's the Westford Museum is going to do it next spring.
Good. Yay, Westford.
Yeah, the other one was at the State House this past February.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So can you say something about the music? The song that you sang, was that a standard of
That's an actual suffrage song. They adapted the words to Molly Malone, and it's the song that my grandmother would sing at the conclusion of the many speeches that she made throughout the country as a national organizer. She became known as the singing suffragist. And they really did sing it in jail to comfort each other. Yes?
What's your connection with Elizabeth?
So Elizabeth DeBonca was my work-study student at Brandeis. I'm a resident scholar at the Women's Studies Research Center. And for about 2 years before last February, Freddie and I were planning to do some kind of reenactment of the suffragists picketing the State House. It was the only time that suffragists picketed outside of Washington, D.C.
And it was the last time that suffragists were jailed prior to the adoption. The last time women suffragists were jailed was in Boston at the Charles Street Jailhouse.
So we felt like this was an important moment and we wanted to commemorate it. And I puzzled about how I actually wanted to do it. Then And I actually wasn't sure. And then I got this work study student, and she turned out to be a total gift. We sat down and we sort of tossed ideas back and forth, and we said, well, we could maybe make a play, very uncertainly. And then suddenly it just like took off. She would be one person, I'd be another person. We'd both have our computers open to the same Google Doc. And she would say, okay, so I'm gonna say X. And I'd say, okay, well then I'll say this in reply. Okay, well then I'll do this. Okay, well then I'll do that. It just snowballed. It was really, really an amazing experience to write that play. And I'm so sorry she couldn't be here. She's back at Brandeis doing new student orientation. She's a senior this year. Yeah.
Who is the person who bailed them out?
Yeah.
That is the full extent of the information I know. The papers, they were never able to uncover the person he was working for.
Wow.
And whether they were pro or con.
Wonderful performance, and are the names of the people, actual historical people who were part of this? And I guess there were 16 of them altogether, and you selected
Yeah,
some of the
that's right.
people.
So there were actually 22 suffragists who marched, and I had to make a selection. Initially, I had 35 people in the cast of characters because I wanted to include a lot. And Lizzie DeBanca, who had some stage experience, said you have to cut down. So I cut down to 15. And she said, no, you're not there yet. It was so hard. So every woman on stage is a historical character and speaking from their character. Lucy Daniels was this feisty woman from Vermont, and so on and so forth. And then the 16 of them went to jail. So I wish I could have had all 22 and then all 16.
And did you have records of what they said, or were you kind of imagining what they might have said?
I had to imagine what they would have said. There's actually, every now and then, the newspapers really were right on top of this. So whenever possible, I borrowed phrases and quotes from the newspapers. I'm not going to remember right at this moment where they are, but they're scattered throughout. Yeah.
Were there writings of Martha Foley that survived?
Very much less than I would have liked. I found a book in which she described this event, but very briefly. And she definitely did not mention her father paying her fine. The way she described it was pretty much as Martha just now spoke about it. And then actually a lot of what Martha talks about came out of her words or out of newspaper accounts. Yeah.
2 questions. Why weren't all 22 arrested? Do you know?
Oh, so all 22 were arrested, but then there was various reasons for why only 16 went to jail. There was one woman who, when she got to the courthouse, and the judge said, I'm going to sentence you to 8 days. She's like, my husband's sick, and I have to take care of him. I'm going to have to pay my fine. And she's, the other suffragists were kind of ambivalent about this because they really understood her problem, but they wanted to stick together. And then there was a fairly young woman, only 14 years old, who was arrested, and they released her immediately. And I can't remember what happened to the other ones.
And then Pam, at the end, it implied that they were all going back to Washington. Did they have the means to do this? I mean, did they live in Boston? Did they come up here to do this?
Okay, so let's see. Mrs. Rosa Rauer was local Boston, and Catherine Morey was from Boston, but she was doing national organizing, so she would have gone back to Washington. Rosa probably went home to see her kids, whom she hadn't seen for 8 days. But I had to make it spiffy, so. But Betty Graham definitely was heading back to Washington. Lucy Daniels was heading back.
Now, I portray a woman from Framingham.
A different woman, not Alice Paul.
She's not in this cast, but she was a businesswoman. And she was in the Charles Street jail, but another woman from Framingham was in Washington, and she was prison in the Occoquan workhouse. And they asked them to come to Washington to picket on Bastille Day. And Louise Mayo, a farmer's wife, said, "I will be glad to dedicate my mind and my body to the cause of suffrage." And the other woman that I portrayed was a businesswoman, Josephine Collins, and she was thrown into jail, and her brother came and paid her bail, and she was really mad. And she had a store, and back in Framingham, a lot of women's husbands didn't want them to work at her store anymore or shop there. But of course, she did get a lot of publicity, and she got a lot more customers.
Yes.
Did this protest stimulate any positive response, supportive response publicly or in the press?
Yes, it was nationwide coverage, and it really did up the support for suffragists. And so they didn't quite get that last vote that they needed that week, but in June of that year, 1919, they did finally get the last vote they needed in the Senate. And you know, there's a certain amount of momentum that had started building by then.
And was it the Louisiana representative?
No, it was someone else.
There was the Tennessee.
No, it was in the Senate. It was a senator. So there was some, yeah.
And I was wondering how their families and friends viewed them before and after. Like, were they embarrassed and just wished that they wouldn't do this, or were they proud of them and urged them on? Who took care of their children? And then after they got the vote, did everybody say, like, oh, of course they should have it, of course I'm proud of them?
Well, you know, there's a lot of different women and a lot of different stories, so I don't know exactly. I know from my grandmother, who was 24 when she got arrested in Washington, D.C. the first time she picketed, and a journalist came to the Graham the Graham household in Portland, Oregon, and interviewed her parents. Her mom said, "Nobody in my family has ever been arrested before, but under these circumstances, I am proud of them."
Wow.
Yeah.
You mentioned a little bit in the program notes, and then there's just a little bit of reference in the play about the sort of racial tensions and strategy around that. And I wonder if you could say a little bit more about that history and what you learned about that.
Do you have all night?
I'm offering an opportunity.
So I think that one of the things that Freddie and I have been discovering is that this centennial really is an opportunity to look back at the past and look back at it in a more complete way, because African American suffragists, African American women definitely were suffragists, but they were not included in any of the histories. So we're having to go back and do the research now and learn more about them. And Josephine St. Pierre Ruffin, for example, was a Bostonian, and she, as a young girl, worked with Lucy Stone and Julia Ward Howe, and formed one of the trillion suffrage movement organizations that there were in the United States. This one was like the American Women's Suffrage Association or something like that. And then she did a lot of work in suffrage, a lot of work for during the Civil War. She just was this amazing activist person, and we're learning much more about her now. And this is a good moment to mention that tomorrow.
My entree, thank you. So there were flyers on the table. I'm happy to tell you about it. Tomorrow at the Swan Boats, we're doing a celebration, a commemoration for Women's Equality Day, which is, the technical day is August 26th, which was the day that the 19th Amendment was actually certified into the Constitution. And when Bella Abzug was in Congress, she had it designated as Women's Equality Day, August 26th. So every year for the past several years, we've been doing an event. It's a long, wonderful story actually about why we're at the Swan Boats. But we'll be at the Swan Boats tomorrow, and our entire performance, in fact, or the program, our theme is Sheroes, borrowed from Ayanna Pressley and others, African American suffragists of Massachusetts. And we'll be honoring Josephine St. Pierre Ruffin. And one of the things that's really exciting is Josephine St. Pierre Ruffin was one of the founders of the Boston NAACP. And the current president is Tanisha Sullivan, and she is going to be speaking tomorrow at the Swan Boats. And we're also honoring Mariah Louise Baldwin from Cambridge, who was a woman who was an educator and a teacher and a suffragist, and she became principal. She worked her way up to being principal of the Agassiz School in Cambridge, which is now named after her. She was the principal of a school of all white students. I don't believe there were, and there may have been a few, but they were basically a white school, which was amazing. She was quite a leader. So we're honoring her and Sojourner Truth tomorrow. So free and open to the public, come to the Swan Boats at noon tomorrow. Love to have you. But it becomes this wonderful opportunity, as Pam was saying, for us to explore. There's so much history that we don't know, that none of us knew, that just hasn't come out. And this is an opportunity for us to learn all about it. There were so many suffragists, including Lucy Stone, Alice Paul. We didn't grow up with so many people. And I will mention Barbara Berenson. You want to raise your hand for Barbara wrote the book about Massachusetts suffragists and did a lot of work about Lucy Stone and others. So, you know, this is this great opportunity because there's so much to learn and inspire us because this is a continuing issue. Voting is a continuing issue. Part of our hope is that people will learn these incredible stories that are so dramatic and unbelievable, and that people will be inspired, will appreciate their vote more, and that we will increase voter participation as a result. One of the goals. Thank you.
Where's Thea?
Thea, your turn.
Okay, hi. Can I tell the whole story?
I'll join you.
The cast is from We Did It For You, which is a musical about how women got their rights in America. We've been performing it here in Massachusetts since Women's Equality Day 2017. We decided to start doing it after the Women's March that year, and Shirley is one of the producers.
I'm a producer, and we have a cast of 22 women, all volunteers. We are home-based at the Foxborough Marilyn Rodman Performing Arts Center, and we're actually performing in Needham for the League of Women Voters in November, and traveling to Chicopee, and we're looking at the Kennedy Library, talking to them because they want us.
We'll be in Lexington in March, so we'll be doing a lot of performances next year. We have some cards if you're interested, but this is the cast.
So our cast has volunteered to be part of this because this all means so much to us, to get this word out, to be educating what?
Jordan is saying he's not part of the cast.
You are part of the cast because you are a husband of a cast member. We have cast and crew, and they're all part of the whole shebang. Absolutely.
What's your website?
It's wediditforyou.org. And
we have some cards.
Yeah, we're happy to answer any questions.
So if your organization, your church, your a theater, anywhere you're interested, we would love to talk. And we love participating and supporting Freddie and Pam and all the work that everybody's doing.
Because we're all talking the same language here, right?
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
I just have a quick question. Is the Charles Street Jail now the Liberty Hotel?
Yes.
And
Yes.
if so, have they done anything to commemorate this?
Yes. That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, have you been to it? It's really cool the way they kept some of the jail.
They call the bar Clink, don't they?
Yeah.
Clink. That's what the bar's the Clink.
But are there any?
I don't know if they're doing anything about the.
Yeah, is there any plaque or?
Not yet.
There will be.
So we're part of a national effort called the National Votes for Women Trail. And we have a grant from the Pomeroy Corporation out of New York, Foundation, out of New York. They want to put plaques, which is wonderful, roadside markers all around the country. And they're regular roadside markers that we're used to, but they're white with purple so that you can designate them as suffragists. And so we're on monthly conference calls with people around the country, and there's a group, and we're making our list. I think we have up to 35 sites on ours, yes. And we're open and looking for more, and Pomeroy was great. I had a conversation with them a few weeks ago, actually at Seneca Falls, and they said, well, let us know. It sounded like they weren't gonna limit it. Initially, it's gonna be, we have to choose 5 spots per state, and Massachusetts is one of the early states, but this obviously is a great, is a great one, yeah. We had talked about it.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. It was wonderful.